Alright, and we're back. So I'm trying something a bit new with video this time, as you can probably immediately obviously tell if the video works and I decided to keep it in. So we're doing another video. I actually recorded this a couple months ago, like with the first one, and like with the first one, the original set of audio got screwed up, so I had to restart and do it from scratch a second time. So this one's going to be on Khorne, if you saw my Twitter. And I want to start this one with a little bit something new. This time I want to start by just like promoting a hobbyist I like community. Obviously I don't have any influence in the community and not that many of you watch my videos, but I still want to just like, you know, promote someone else, since one day if this channel does become bigger, I want to be able to encourage alternatives to GW and promote people who do good in our community. And this time is the artist Underhype Art. They produce a ton of art, mostly stuff like little posters and whatnot. Of course, one's up on screen, but that's just like little posters for like Underhives, as you can tell by the name, and just other stuff like some Inquisition people want some banners. I think there's even like some, oh, what are their names? Navigator themed ones, navigators, and other types of psycho themed ones. So yeah, they have all that stuff. They have it all for free on Google Drive. They can just like download and use. I've used some of it, and I highly suggest you use it too, and also donate to them on Ko-fi so they can keep doing this. On to the subject of this video. This week we're going to be looking at Khorne. As you probably know, Khorne is one of the 4 runes residing in the Warp. He's known as Khorne, Blood God, Karna, Arkar, Togar, Dorn, Kar, Great Brass Bull, the Bloody Handed, although not confused with the other Bloody Handed person, the Axe Father, and the Blood Wolf. So he was originally born after the War in Heaven from all the black issues from the mass of souls in the warp and all the negative emotions and all the other weird stuff going on. He was pretty passive and weak. He wasn't really doing much at all until really Slanesh was born and riled up all the other Chaos Gods. One of the most important things is he's not confused with Cain, who is the other bloody-handed god, who is distinctly different. We know that they're not the same, as they both fought Slanesh side by side after she was the Eldar Pantheon, and in this fight Cain was cast out from real space and Chartston ended up in Infinity Circuits, so it's like he's this distinct entity. After this battle with Slanesh, things calmed down with him doing very little into the Horus Heresy, where he got supercharged by the Galaxy-wide Civil War and has been active and powerful ever since, because the entire galaxy has been at Civil War since then. So one of the major misconceptions about Khorne is that people just think he's this big evil British god, but he's actually neither malevolent or benevolent. He's just more embodied with the natural concept of survival of the fittest, and is associated with blood, murder, violence, and combat, which is why a lot of people don't like him. But he's also associated with stuff like honor, bravery, determination, and fitness. And this means that warriors of Khorne who are civilians are actually displayed Khorne, even though hears a lot in lore who don't quite understand what they're doing in user lore, like Black Library. But this also means that Khorne is the only ruined power that can actually trust. He's not going to backstab.
He will just stab you in the face, over and over again, until your face stops resembling a face.
Another interesting note is that Cain is actually all the embodiments of Khorne until Cain fought Rishitan, where he's crushed by the Nightbringer and lost most of his benevolent traits, like how Khorne embodied blood, murder, violence, and combat, but also honor, bravery, determination, fitness. Cain actually lost those last 4 attributes, and now he's just like blood, murder, violence, combat, and it's actually no better than what most people think of Khorne as because of the Nightbringer influencing him. Khorne also influences his followers much less than the other gods, and his only real order is that blood must be spilled, but he cares not from where it flows. That means that just murdering things that fight back is enough to please Khorne, and pretty much all fighting in the galaxy feeds Khorne, even if neither faction in combat actually reveres Khorne at all. And many people think that he's the most powerful for this exact reason. Khorne also has a strong dislike of Psykers. Khorne actually sees magic as unfair because you're stealing the power of dark gods to meet your own ends. To this end, Khorne is actually okay with technologically assisted murder. Guns are not as good as swords, but it took him an ingenuity to make guns, so he's actually pretty okay with those. That means an engineer who spends all their days innovating new ways for ways to kill each other is okay by Khorne because they're using their own talents and efforts in an honest endeavor to murder other people. However, there are a few kinds of magic that Khorne actually doesn't mind. The first is obviously summoning demons of Khorne, and because how else is he going to get his guys on the field to help murder people? And the second is magic weapons, because even though you're using magic, you still need to be a talented swordsman to actually use the magic weapon effectively, so it's still relying a lot more on person's innate combat abilities. And also non-combat magic, like the aforementioned summoning, is also okay, which is also why he likes Astropaths and Navigators, otherwise his human followers would just be stuck nowhere. So he's actually okay with just like practical non-combat magic. Another big misconception is how Khorne looks. A lot of people think he looks like a giant bloodletter, like the demons of Nurgle are like little nerdlings, and there's good including ones which are scaled up, and so Nurgle is like a massively scaled up one, and then he knows, and she thinks look like perverts, and Slanesh is like uber perverts, so everyone assumes, oh, Khorne must just be a giant bloodletter, but no, he's actually looks like a massive Chaos Warrior, which, for those who don't know, Warhammer finished out came before WH40k, so like Chaos Warriors were like the big main strong followers of Chaos that were mortal, where these big guys decked out in armor and basically just go around and use giant swords. So this really fits Khorne really well because he likes the moral aspect of his followers. He likes it when they're using their own ingenuity, their own talents, and they're not using magic. They're literally just out there with armor and swords. So it makes sense that he would look like a massive Chaos Warrior in a chair, and also he has a wolf-like head because he kind of has a thing for wolves, as you can probably tell by his name, where he's called literally the Blood Wolf. Which also brings me to another point that it's also really weird of how the Space Wolves have fallen to Khorne, because like the Space Wolves, you know, obviously they have a huge wolf influence. They very much appreciate melee prowess. They have a strong importance on honor. So it's just kind of weird that they actually have this massive overlap where the ideal Khornic warband would probably be Space Wolves, but they still remain loyal. So that's actually probably really interesting to keep Khorne in here, so I haven't looked into that because obviously it's not canon, it's an alternate timeline that's made entirely by fans, but I could definitely see the Space Wolves being a Khorne warband, and they probably are, since it makes a lot of sense with the overlap. So in the realm of Chaos, Khorne's realm is, well, actually it's pretty much just Dante's Inferno. There's massive bloody lakes, there's oversized skulls everywhere, there's literally fortresses made out of grass, tons of lava, and it connects directly to the Eye of Terror, which means that he actually has the most direct connection to real space, which is probably why the demons of Ruin Storm were riding kind of looked Khorne, although not quite like Khorne demons. They didn't quite like proper Khorne stuff, but the demons of Ruin Storm looked very Khorne related, even though they're a bit more close to Chaos and Light, but that's probably why there's a major influence in them. Khorne also pretty much hates all the Chaos Gods. He hates Slanesh obviously because she's less honorable in combat and she's in the creepy stuff. And also she tends to steal a lot of followers from Khorne because they really like it. Because one of their big things is excess, just going all in the excess of murder, the excess of collecting spells, the excess of blood, all that would feed into Slanesh, and those people could possibly get roped into Slanesh's realm instead of Khorne's realm, and also with Perfection, where it's like one of the main reasons that the Emperor's children fell is because they're really into perfecting combat, which is why they had all the Master Swordsmen like Lucius the Eternal, who basically their whole focus was, I am really good with swords, I need to perfect my swords better, I need to always hit the enemy first, never get hit, always have a perfect parry. And even though they would be great for Khorne because of their martial prowess, they fell to Slanesh for that urge for perfection, so she's really leeching off a lot of his followers, which is one reason why he hates her so much. He also hates Sinch for similar reasons, not as much leeching off, but because he uses her Cure Deceit and Magic a lot, which is less honorable than using power that isn't earned by the person, so he really doesn't like that about that. And the one he hates least is probably Nurgle, because he doesn't really have any reason to hate him other than him being a rival Chaos God, but he's not even like the polar opposite, because Khorne and Slanesh are polar opposites, because honor versus deceit, while Zinch and Nurgle are polar opposites at each other because change versus stagnation. So, yeah, so he probably hates Nurgle the least because of that. Alright, and then there's also demons. Khorne is really bad at naming things. He sounds pretty much just like an edgy teenager. The first demon is literally just is called a Bloodthirster, which is the largest demon of Khorne. It has a flaming weapon. It's pretty much just the Balrog. You could literally take a what was that one Warhammer thing? The one GWIP that everyone always forgets exists. The Lord of the Rings game? I forget what it's called, but basically the Lord of the Rings game. You can literally just get the Balrog model for that and use it as a Bloodthirster. It looks exactly the same. They're extremely powerful. They're actually powerful enough to rival Primarchs, and one of them basically one-shot Synchronous and took him out of a fight in a combat. So you don't really want to mess with these ones. They're pretty big. And next up, not to be confused with Bloodthirster, is the Bloodletter, which basically looks like a Satan with oversized horns. It's pretty much a Stern Demon of horns, slightly bigger than a Space Marine. It has a super sharp sword given out specifically by Khorne to each individual one, which is saying something because they're the most common. And this sword is basically extremely dangerous. It just cuts right through stuff. I don't even remember the name of it. It probably has some cool name. I'll pop it up. And then not to be confused with them, next is the Blood Crushers, because everything is just blood something in this faction. And this one doesn't even really make sense. It's just a bloodletter riding a juggernaut. I just call it a bloodletter riding a juggernaut. It makes no sense for it to have its own unique edgy name. And then next up is the Juggernaut, which is a giant semi-mechanical steel beast. It's mostly made of machine, but it's also a native creature, so it's really weird. It makes no sense, but whatever, it's the world, it's not supposed to make sense. And they're named to Khorne's domain, they just want random attacks. And champions are expected to tame one, where they basically just go out and try to climb in this thing and not get murdered by it for like a week long as it tries to kill them over and over, or it finally submits to them. And it looks actually like a demon engine, but it's not one. It's not built by in the Soul Forges or anything. And the reason why we know this is that they also appear in fantasy, where there are no Soul Forges and no demon engines, so they can't be. Although fantasy has had its issues with Warhammer and stuff leaking over in way older editions. It's actually a whole list of relics that are all just literally 40k items in fantasy, which is actually awesome. And I'll probably throw up a link to it just because I really like that item. Next up is Flesh Hounds, once again feeding into Khorne's whole wolf thing where he really likes wolves. They're basically angry lizard dogs, and use them as hunting hounds. They just go out and hunt down people that Khorne really doesn't like. They also have built-in psychic resistant colors that grow on the neck with massive spikes, which is why they sometimes look weird. And this to help protect them from cycles, which are one of the main things Khorne hates and sends them after. And despite their really small models on tabletop, they're actually larger than Space Marines. They're like Wolves of Nightmare style. Like if you ever see a picture of like Liam and Russ and these two wolves, they're like the exact same size. You could actually like just use them as a proxy and just add them like spiky colors, but it's supposed to be a little more blizzardy, although people probably wouldn't mind a more wolfy one considering Khorne likes wolves, as we've covered multiple times. Next up, another edgy name is Slaughterproof. It's a giant ape monster thing. It has way too many limbs. It looks weird. It didn't even used to be Khorne, it just used to be a random creature. It's kind of dumb and just exists. It doesn't make sense. I'm not even talking about it. It's just giant ape has a ton of limbs and it looks stupid. That's basically all it has. That's literally all the notes I took on this thing. It's dumb. And that's like the last demon of Khorne, even though it didn't even used to be a demon, and now it just sort of is and has no representation in the setting, because why not? Lastly, I just wanted to shout out Warlock Croft on Twitter for constantly bugging me to make this video, even though I already did recorded months ago. So thanks. Until I get taught by I'll get wrecked. Dang, only 13 minutes. That's gonna be like 1/3 the length of my previous video on this done. So yeah, that's a pretty quick rundown of all the stuff about Khorne. If you ever want to hear about like, hey, I want a video on the followers of Khorne, I'll make that start video. I figured this one would be a bit too long if I did that. If I did both followers of Khorne and Khorne. There's an oddly small amount of lore on the Chaos Gods themselves actually doing things. I think there's a bit more on Slanesh just because there's that whole bit where Slanesh and California were messing about in the war, but there's not actually a lot of lore where it's, hey, it's Khorne directly doing things. It's always like, hey, it's Khorne's number one demon directly doing things. Hey, it's what's his name with the burnt off wings doing things. It's most of the Chaos lore is just like the followers themselves. So I figured this video would run way too long if I had those. So if you want to see a video on those, I'll make a video on those separately. If you want to see a video on the other Chaos Gods, I guess I can do another video like this one on another Chaos God. If you're confused on like the core things like, hey, what exactly is a Chaos God? What is the warp? I guess I could do a breakdown video on those. I didn't want to have those in this because if I say, did the whole explanation of what the warp is and what the Chaos Gods are, like as an entity, not like as individuals and personalities, then I'd have to like go through like all the science of that. But then if I, in the future did a video on a different Chaos God, I'd either have to repeat all that or direct back to this video to see it. So I decided to leave that out as a separate video if I make that a video at all. If you want that, feel free to let me know. I'll probably run another poll on my Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that this one gets recorded properly. I hope there's no mic issues this time, even though I'm not actually using this on a built computer one. Hopefully this works out. Hopefully the video works and doesn't screw the whole thing up. Trying to keep these shorter than the first Planet Print just because it takes so long to add all the pictures. Like, editing the video is grueling and long cutting down all the audio, but putting in all those pictures, you wouldn't think it would take that long, because it's like, oh, just go to Google, grab a picture, save the picture, take a picture from save pictures, put it in the video, stretch it out, do like a little panning thing on it, and you're done. But doing that whole loop only gets you like 3 seconds through a 30-minute video, which means that you have to do it like 20 times for a full minute, and then 30 times for the full video, which is like you have to do it 600 times total, and that's not including like little gags and stuff I put in making fun of Kadia. So that just took a ton of time. So I'm trying to keep these a lot shorter now. I think I went off on a tangent. I'm not sure I said thank you for watching and all that, but I'm just going to say it again just to be safe. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I have to be doing more of these later. I have to be getting back into gameplay videos. I have to fix my corrupted stuff on Minecraft because, oh yeah, all my files got corrupted because it forced an update when I had no internet, and then wouldn't let me reinstall it because my internet was too slow. And it's like, why did you force me to do the update in the first place?